Hey everyone! Welcome to the Event Hub, where every event turns into an unforgettable experience. The BNP Paribas Open organizers are holding emergency midnight meetings to handle a situation unprecedented in the tournament's 50-year history. And all of it, every single bit of it is because of one name, Alexandra Eala. Now, I need you to understand this. This isn't just a fleeting craze. This isn't baseless hype from stan fans. This is a phenomenon backed by data, by numbers, and by testimonials from the very people who have played on the biggest stages on the planet. In this video, I'm going to strip back the layers of this phenomenon. From her ranking stats to her Nike strategy, from her opponent's psyche to her tactical advantage on the Indian Wells surface. But before we dive in, if this is your first time at Pro Tennis 360, hit subscribe right now. We don't do fluff content. We analyze tennis at the deepest level, the kind you won't find anywhere else. And with Alex Eala, we've been tracking her since before the rest of the world even knew who she was. So, subscribe, turn on notifications because we'll be tracking every forehand and every match point she plays at Indian Wells, and you don't want to miss a single second. Now, back to the most important question. How can a 20-year-old girl drive all of California this crazy? To answer that, we have to start with the numbers. And the first number I want you to remember is 31. World number 31. That is Alexandra Eala's current spot on the WTA rankings, the highest career high of her life. Sounds normal. Let me explain why that number changes everything at Indian Wells 2026. The ranking and its true meaning. World number 31 and why that number changes everything. World number 31. Hearing that, many might think, okay, top 31, not bad. But here is what most people don't understand about the structure of a WTA 1000 like the BNP Paribas Open. When you break into the top 32, you become seated. And when you are seated at a 1000 level event, you don't play the first round, you get a bye, a free pass to the next round. What does that mean? While her competitors are grinding from day one, dealing with sore feet and fatigue muscles, Eala is sitting in the strategy room with her coaching team from the Rafinadel Academy, dissecting every weakness of her second-round opponent. This is the first time in her entire professional career that Alex Eala enters a 1,000 level tournament as a seated player. The WTA computers have finally been forced to admit what her fans have known for a long time. This girl is no lucky wildcard. She is a systematic tactical threat who can beat anyone on any given day. Look at the path to that number. The Dubai WTA 1000. She entered as an underdog. And what did she do? She dismantled Jasmine Paolini, the world number 7. Like it was a routine practice session. The stadium shook. Not because of music, but because of the roar of thousands of Filipinos who showed up in Dubai just to see her play. And now she's in California, a state with one of the largest and most powerful Filipino communities in North America. If Dubai was the whisper of a rising empire, Indian Wells 2026 is its roar. The number 31 isn't just a ranking, it's a passport. It's mathematical proof that Eala has officially joined the WTA elite. And once you're in, you don't leave. The ticket frenzy, tickets evaporate, servers collapse, organizers panic. Let's talk about the ticket numbers because this is what truly reveals the scale of the Alex Eala phenomenon. At typical WTA tournaments, a ticket frenzy usually only happens for the semifinals or finals. When Sabalenka and Swiatek are about to clash or when Gauff is defending a title, that's when the secondary market explodes and prices triple or quadruple. But for Eala at Indian Wells 2026, the fever hit the moment the schedule was announced. As soon as people knew she was stepping onto the court, not for a final, not for a quarterfinal, but for a second-round match, secondary market prices skyrocketed to levels usually reserved for Grand Slam finals. Think about this. Indian Wells has hosted Federer, Serena, and Djokovic. But rarely in history has a second-round match created a surge so massive it crashed the servers. The organizers are facing a situation they never prepared for. How to manage a fan force that is organized, disciplined, and ready to fly in from multiple states, even from the Philippines, just to be in the stadium when Eala walks out. And here's the most interesting part. Many of these buyers aren't traditional tennis fans. They are stepping into a tennis stadium for the first time in their lives. They are coming for Eala. And in doing so, they are bringing their wallets, their passion, and a new generation of spectators that the WTA has spent years trying to attract without success. That is something no marketing campaign can buy. Testimonials from ADP legends. When the men who played Federer talk about her, you listen. I want you to think about these names. Sam Querrey, John Isner, Steve Johnson. These are top ADP veterans who have faced Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Men who have breathed the air of Wimbledon center court. In the latest episode of the Nothing Major podcast, one of the most listened to tennis podcasts in the world, they spent an entire segment talking about one thing, the Alex Eala phenomenon. Sam Querrey asked bluntly, is Alex Eala the biggest global draw on the WTA tour right now? Steve Johnson didn't hesitate. Not for a second. The answer was yes. He described the crowds in Australia and Dubai, standing room only. He used words like insane and absolutely massive to describe the level of attention she's receiving. Stop and think about that. This isn't an ELA fan talking. This isn't the tournament organizers trying to hype her up. These are ADP legends known for being blunt and honest, saying they haven't seen anything like this in women's tennis in a very long time. When the men who played on the biggest stages in the world, who usually focus only on the ADP, spend their podcast time analyzing a 20-year-old Filipina, you know, something has shifted. The paradigm has moved, and the industry's sharpest minds are starting to realize it. Nike and commercial power. Nike doesn't spend money on losers and they just bet big on ELA. Before Eala even set foot in Indian Wells, she stopped somewhere very exclusive. Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Nike doesn't invite athletes to HQ just for product photos. They don't do that for average contracts. When Nike rolls out the red carpet at Beaverton, it's the clearest signal possible that they view you as the future of the brand. What did they do for Eala? They plastered her face on the walls of that legendary campus. They created an art installation inspired by the Sagita, the national flower of the Philippines, to honor her. They aren't just sponsoring an athlete. They are building a brand narrative around her. Why? Because Nike sees the data. They see the sold-out stadiums. They see the social media engagement rates. They see the merchandise flying off the shelves every time she plays. Most importantly, Nike sees Eala as the bridge between the West and the sleeping giant of the Asian market. A market with hundreds of millions of people who haven't had a tennis superstar to call their own. That is something marketing budgets cannot buy. It's a once-in-a-decade opportunity. And Nike, with their experience from Jordan to Serena to Federer, knows exactly when they are standing in front of a generational superstar. The message they are sending to the rest of the WTA tour is painfully clear. This girl is the future and we are on her side. Tactical advantage at Indian Wells. The Indian Wells courts were practically designed for ELA. Now, let's talk real tennis. Amidst the ticket craze and Nike deals, the question remains, how far can Eala go? The answer depends largely on court conditions. And here is what many don't know. Indian Wells has one of the most unique surfaces on the entire WTA calendar. It's hardcourt, yes, but not your standard hardcourt. The dry desert air makes the ball fly slower through the air, but the court surface itself has a high grit. The ball bounces high, takes a lot of spin, and prevents flat, high-speed hitters from being fully effective. In simpler terms, this is paradise for players who use heavy topspin. Players who can control the geometry of the court from the baseline and push their opponents back to the fences. Who plays like that? Who was trained to maximize heavy topspin by the academy of perhaps the greatest topspin player in history? Alexandra Eala Rafa Nadal Academy. Coincidence? I don't think so. She is a left-hander just like Nadal. She creates angles that right-handed players find incredibly difficult to defend. She can pull her opponents off the center of the court and then strike the open corner with surgical precision. On the slow and gritty Indian Wells courts, her opponent's flat power shots will bounce right into Eala's strike zone. That is not a small advantage. That is a systematic advantage that shows up in every rally, every baseline exchange, and every critical point of the match. Psychological warfare. 15,000 people are praying for your failure. Welcome to Eala's world. Let me paint a picture for you. You are a WTA pro. You've trained your whole life to be here. You fly to California. You prepare meticulously. You walk through the tunnel onto the court and suddenly realize 15,000 people in the stands are rooting for your opponent. Every time you miss, they cheer. Every double fault, they explode. Every ELA winner shakes the foundation of a stadium. That isn't just tennis. That is total psychological warfare. We saw how this affected even the toughest players. Coco Gauff, a US Open champion with one of the best mental games in the WTA, admitted in Dubai that she had to tell herself the crowd was chanting her name just to stay calm. Now take that Dubai crowd and multiply it by 10. Place them in the massive bowl of the Indian Wells tennis garden under the California sun. That is what Eala's opponents face. But here's the most important part. Eala doesn't just endure the crowd pressure, she absorbs it. Every cheer becomes energy. Every clap becomes motivation. She converts 15,000 Filipinos into direct fuel for her shots. That is a psychological edge that statistics can't measure. And it makes Eala a completely different kind of threat than anyone else in the draw. House money and the nothing to lose mentality. When you have nothing to lose, you are the most dangerous person on the court. Of all the advantages Eala brings into Indian Wells 2026, there is one that few people mention, but I believe it is as important as all the others. She is playing with house money. This is her first time at the BNP Paribas Open. She wasn't here last year. What does that mean? She has 0 ranking points to defend at this tournament. Not 1 point. Every round she wins is pure profit. New points, new prize money, a higher ranking. Compare that to the Miami Open, the very next tournament, where she has to defend 390 points from her legendary semi-final run last year. That is real pressure. That is where an early loss could cause a significant ranking drop. But at Indian Wells, she is free, completely free. And an Eala unburdened by the fear of losing points is the most dangerous version of Eala. She can serve and volley on a whim. She can attack her opponent's second serve early. She can choose high-risk lines that she might usually pass up in normal situations. This mentality is what creates giant-slaying moments. When you have nothing to lose, you play free. When you play free, you play your best. And when you play your best with 15,000 supporters behind you, top 10 players should be very worried. Cultural significance beyond tennis. This isn't a tennis tournament. It's a cultural revolution. Let's step away from ranking numbers and Nike contracts for a moment because there is something much bigger happening in California. And if you only see it as a tennis tournament, you're missing the whole story. For decades, tennis has tried to expand its fan base. They've hired marketing strategists. They've changed formats. They've discounted tickets. But the result has remained the same. Tennis is still often seen as an upper-middle-class sport for those who grew up with a racket in hand. Then Alex Eala showed up and did in 18 months what the WTA couldn't do in 20 years. People who have never watched a tennis match in their lives. 70-year-old grandmothers, 16-year-old football fans, overseas workers are finding ways to buy tickets to Indian Wells. It's not because they suddenly fell in love with tennis. It's because they have someone who represents them. Someone who when she walks onto the court reflects their own faces, their families, and their homeland. That is something no marketing campaign can manufacture. It only happens when someone truly earns that position and has enough talent not to let down those who believe in them. When Eala steps onto the court and ties her Nikes, she doesn't just represent herself. She carries 100 million people. All the Filipinos at home and overseas who left their homeland for a better life and never had a tennis superstar to call their own. The ticket frenzy at Indian Wells isn't about tennis. It's about honor. It's about belonging. And it's about a historic moment where people want to say, I was there. And now the EAL era has officially begun. Let me summarize everything we've analyzed. World number 31 career high. Guaranteed first round bye. 0 ranking points to defend. An Indian Wells surface perfectly suited for the heavy top spin of a Rafford Doll Academy prototype. Nike betting an entire brand strategy on her. ADP legends dedicating podcast time to her magnetism. And 15,000 Filipino fans ready to turn the Coachella Valley into a part of Manila. This isn't hype. These are the facts. These are the numbers, the testimonials, and the business decisions of the smartest people in the industry. And they are all saying the same thing. Alex Eala is the present, not the future. Top 10 players are sitting in their hotels tonight hearing about the sold-out tickets, the server crashes, and the podcast talking about that 20-year-old girl, and they are feeling something they aren't used to. Nervousness. The new era of the WTA is here and it's wearing Nike swinging a Babel and stepping out of the strategy room of the Rafford Academy to shock the world.